which moved me into Scientology.
Oh, wow.
And I worked at the Celebrity Center in Hollywood and signed up John Travolta and all sorts of big names for their courses. So I was completely sucked into that lie.
Hi, everyone. This is Doreen, and I am so excited to introduce you to a friend of mine and a sister in Christ who has an amazing story of redemption and encouragement and perseverance. If you're going through a time of trial right now, our hearts go out to you, and you're going to want to watch this program because my guest today, Athena Dean Holtz, is a testimony to God's provision and protection. She came out of a cult and spiritual abuse. She actually lost everything. She lost her marriage. She lost her reputation, her business. Her story is so compelling because she kept going, and she's a big encouragement for women. She goes and gives speeches everywhere and writes blogs, and her website is in the link below. You'll definitely want to visit that. She's the founder and publisher of Redemption Press. Athena, thank you so much for being with me today.
Oh, Doreen, thank you so much for having me.
Well, gosh, can we just dive in? Because I know I'm anxious to hear the details of your story, and a lot of people will want to hear. So sure. You were at the Celebrity Center. That's the one that's known as where Tom Cruise has been. And so you were there when John Travolta signed up?
Yep. So that
what happened?
Mid 70s. And I actually had met an actor named Wings Hauser, and he and his wife, I was working in the music industry. I was Helen Reddy's husband. I was his admin person.
Okay.
So I was kind of in with the cool people.
Right.
And so Wings Hauser, I don't even really remember how we met, but he and his wife invited me to Santa Barbara to their castle. And that was where he began to tell me about Scientology and auditing and how you hold on to these cans, and the spiritual connection that happens shows the person on the other side of the meter where your struggles are, and then they're able to lead you to those to resolve them. And it was very like, that's kind of interesting, kind of cool. So that was what got me sucked into initially doing one of the initial courses at there was a Scientology place on Hollywood Boulevard. Sunset Boulevard. Mm-hmm. And that was a lot of people in, the music and acting industries went there. And then from there, I got sucked into, actually, believe it or not, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I signed the billion-year contract to be on staff for the Sea Org, is what they called it, that L. Ron Hubbard, it was his master plan to save the planet. I got completely sucked into that because.
So you were on staff.
Yeah, I was on staff at the Celebrity Center, that beautiful big old mansion in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I was the person who signed people up for their first communication course.
That's amazing.
And, so isn't it interesting that my dad was he was a very successful sales and sales management person. I ended up with kind of his personality, and how the enemy would love to use that to promote a lie.
Yeah.
And they put me right in that position where I had a lot of influence on people. And, there was the way that they really sucked me in. There was a couple items that really come to mind that met a need that I had that was, again, rooted in my wounding. Number one, it was like a big family, and being part of a family of people that love each other and care about each other. I didn't have that growing up. That's another whole long story, but just not a real healthy family environment. So there was that piece, but then the other piece was they did a personality test where whenever people will walk down Hollywood Boulevard, they will say, would you like us to do a free personality test? And what they do is, you answer the questions and it shows different areas of your life. And when you're failing or you're not doing well, like in your marriage or in your family relationships or in your career, whatever, it has a low mark, and they'll like circle that and say, well, I can see that your marriage and your struggles in your marriage is ruining your life. And Scientology can help you handle that. So they find the place of pain and give you their answer, that they're the ones that are going to save you from that pain. And boy, sucked me right on in.
Mm. I remember those personality tests because I grew up in California too, being passed out on the street. And my sons even got into it for a while. And it must have been just kind of this perfect storm of the celebrities and that family atmosphere that you were craving. And they seem to have answers. And here they're offering you a job. So it's understandable how you could get sucked into that. And that was the 70s too, when it seemed like there was a lot of cult, like, I'm going to date myself. I'm 63, so I remember the 70s well. And so that was a time where people didn't have a lot of discernment, it seemed like, even though Christianity was definitely everywhere. My neighborhood I grew up in the 70s was just filled with people who went to church every Sunday. And so what was the deal with John Travolta, and you signed him up? What happened?
Well, he was just a young actor doing that Vinny or whatever. I mean, it was the first real success he had on a TV show. So he was basically a brand new celebrity.
This was before Saturday Night Fever.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, he was actually newly famed for his role in Welcome Back, Kotter. And so he really wasn't the big celebrity that we know him as. He was just a young, struggling actor. And so the whole way that Scientology, their strategy, their growth and marketing strategy is to recruit celebrities and opinion leaders, because if you can get them, you get all their followers. And they know that. And that's, in fact, I hope this isn't like totally jumping ship to another topic, but see, Bethel does the same thing. They go for opinion leaders that then, everyone follows them right into heresy.
That's right. Yeah. The influencers that are basically recruited and often very well paid to be spokespeople for things that are not good for us. And in this case could be a salvific issue, the difference between heaven and hell. So here's this young actor. He's Vinny from Welcome Back, Kotter, John Travolta. And you personally signed him up for Scientology.
For the communication course, which is the kind of first step. They always, any sort of error has just enough truth to suck you in and to be credible. And that's what they did. It was this communication course. Everybody struggles with communication. That's an easy first step to gain credibility. And that was what I signed him up for, and, didn't really have much communication with him after that, because they, of course, started the grooming process to turn him into a cash cow for them. Of course, celebrities have lots of money to be able to pay for all that counseling and auditing, and then they in turn get as much dirt on you as they can so that they have something on you. So then if you want to try to leave, you're not even able to, because they will turn that against you.
That's extortion.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you were at the entry point, and I remember because I did a Scientology session with an ex-counselor, I guess, from Scientology, and she had a machine, and she said I needed to be cleared.
Right.
And it seemed therapeutic. It seemed helpful. I had a supernatural experience that I now know is demonic at the time. I even wrote about it in one of my books. And she was on the run. She said that they would kill her if they found out. And she was only going by her first name. I mean, it just seemed super dangerous to be involved with that cult. Had you had any kind of that experience?
Actually, yes. When right before we got out and were declared suppressive, SP, suppressive person, We had my ex-husband and I had a business where we employed a whole bunch of Scientologists, and it was a phone room where we were raising money for different organizations, nonprofits. And so when we quit, that, you know, we had influence over quite a few people. And so one of the first things that happened was we got a death threat on the phone. Basically, you're dead. And that's the thing about these types of organizations that have these narcissistic, sociopathic leaders who the ends justify the means. It could be completely illegal. They don't care because they have this truth that's worth defending, even if it means lying or cheating or stealing or killing people or putting water in a gas tank of an airplane. I mean, I remember that happening at the same time that we were leaving, where different people were just being sabotaged when they spoke up and criticized and said, this isn't right.
So there were deliberate plane crashes?
There was, I don't remember it being a crash, but they ended up having to do a kind of a crash landing because they had put water in one of the gas tanks. And this was a couple who were leaving and clearly not being quiet about it. And that's what's so insidious, is when, you know, it's just, there's so many parallels with how when we're Christians, and if we don't speak up for the truth, the enemy's always going to try and silence us and shut us down and get us to be quiet. And yeah, it's pretty astounding what people think they have the right to do in the name of whatever lie they believe.
Yeah. Well, the devil is not very creative, is he? He basically repeats Genesis 3 over and over and over again. And it's all promising you something that he can never deliver. But if you take that bait, boy, it's just, you'll get, like you said there was this contract that you signed, and you're basically told to be an indentured servant to this false teaching. Did you ever meet L. Ron Hubbard?
Oh no, he was at that point, this was mid 70s.
Okay.
I was 26, 27-ish, around there. And he was out in the desert in the hot springs of California, where he was kind of hiding out and whatever. He had his movie studio and all that, but no, never. I met his son, but that never met his any of his other kids or him in person. He was pretty crazy. I mean, now that I, can see everything about what he did. In fact, this would be interesting to you and those who are watching. The way that I realized I had believed a lie in Scientology, we had moved into a house and there was just a bookcase and there were some books left there. It was a rental. And one of the books was called White Magic. And it was by Aleister Crowley.
The Satanist.
Yeah. I had no idea who he was, but I found out later. But what was interesting was I opened the book and the page I opened to was something that L. Ron Hubbard had written in some of his books that were absolute truth. And here it was, something that Aleister Crowley had said, and L. Ron Hubbard had plagiarized it.
Wow.
And I was in shock. I'm like, oh my goodness, I have been duped. I'm out of here. But it was to see, I mean, we know from just looking at the organization that it's demonic, but Aleister Crowley, for him to be quoting that guy?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Aleister Crowley also was part of the New Age, and this is all satanic. This is not, it tries to make you feel good. It tries to be effective. It's promises to help you, to help your marriage, your health, etc. But it's just that lie to entice you and to tempt you and to ultimately addict you and lead you to hell. So,
And here's one thing. Let me just point this out, because I saw this the same not only in Scientology, but in, the Great White Brotherhood and the Ascended Masters and the channeling and all of that, and the Christian cult. They all appeal to your pride. That's all they do is, well, we've got the answer and no one else sees it. So if you're really sharp, you're going to see this. And so it's just, it's all about appealing to our pride, and we get sucked in by that.
And to make you feel special.
Yeah.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying. For those who are not familiar with L. Ron Hubbard and his science fiction writing and such, could you give us a synopsis of who he is or was?
Yeah, he was pretty much a crazy person who was an author who wrote science fiction, and even was quoted as saying, yeah, if you ever want to make a bunch of money, start a religion, which he then did based on all of his science fiction writings, which then kind of moved into the Dianetics, modern science of mental health, I think was his big claim to, this is the truth that people need to understand. And he basically built Scientology on that, what he called technology, which, helps people see that they've got traumas that are layered on traumas that are layered on traumas that are then connected to a past life. That, it is so, when you stand back understanding as a believer and understanding the spiritual dynamics and authorities, principalities, powers, rulers, and demons. And then you look at what he has created as this technology that's supposed to clear the planet and make people free. It is just putting people in more bondage and more bondage. And it's all completely demonic.
Yeah, it is. And from what I remember, this woman who worked with me one time, who was an ex-Scientologist, she talked about how there was these different levels and you'd have to pay for the so-called secret information.
Yep. And I went all the way up to, there was 7 levels of OT, which is operating Thetan, which means you in your spirit can control your destiny and you can control everything in your life. And so that's, of course, appeals to your pride because you want to be able to be in control, right? So you pay more and more to go up in these levels of OT in order to be that person who can make whatever you want to happen. And I made it up to OT3, which was the, that was highly classified, confidential. You weren't able to tell anyone about it. And it was just everything about it was demonic. Everything. And as I look back on it now and I just go, oh, Lord, thank you for saving me.